The Arizona desert in 1877 stretched like a vast, unyielding sea of red sand, its surface rippling under the relentless glare of a midday sun that scorched the earth into submission. Red Sands, a remote outpost nestled between towering mesas and scattered saguaros, shimmered in the heat, its adobe huts and weathered corrals baking under a sky bleached of mercy. Tom Carver rode into the settlement on his chestnut mare, Dusty, his broad shoulders hunched beneath a sun-faded duster, his boots caked with dust from weeks on the trail. At 35, his face was a rugged map of lines etched by wind and hardship, a faint scar across his left cheek, a memento of a cattle rustler's knife. His hat, battered and sweat-stained, shaded blue eyes that carried a quiet sorrow, a man wandering since his family's homestead burned 5 years prior, leaving him with a lasso, a rifle, and a heart heavy with loss. He'd come to Red Sands for water and supplies, his canteen dry, his saddlebags light after a lean season. The outpost was a rare stop, a place where outlaws and drifters crossed paths, its silence broken only by the creak of a windmill and the occasional bark of a dog. As Tom dismounted near the well, a sound pierced the stillness, a low, pained groan, barely audible over the wind. He turned, his hand on his rifle, and saw her. A woman, half buried in the sand near a mesquite thicket, her body still, her presence a stark contrast to the desert's emptiness. Tom approached cautiously, his boots crunching on the parched ground. She was Apache, her dark hair tangled and streaked with dust, her buckskin dress torn and faded, its beads scattered like forgotten tears. Her legs, both severed below the knees, lay exposed, the stumps wrapped in blood-crusted cloth, a testament to a brutal fate. Her face, though gaunt and etched with pain, held a fierce beauty, her brown eyes meeting his with a mix of defiance and desperation. "Help me," she rasped, her voice weak but resolute. "My tribe left me." Tom's heart clenched. He'd heard whispers of Apache raids turned sour, of tribes abandoning the wounded to evade pursuit. This woman, left for dead, stirred a memory his wife and son, lost to flames, his failure to save them a wound that never healed. He knelt, his hands gentle as he checked her pulse, finding it faint but steady. "I'm Tom Carver," he said. "I'll get you out of this." She nodded, her breath shallow. "Sarah," she whispered, her trust a fragile thread. He lifted her, her weight light despite her condition, and carried her to a shaded overhang near the well. Using his duster as a makeshift bed, he cleaned her wounds with water from his canteen, bandaging them with strips torn from his shirt. Sarah watched him, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. "Why help me?" she asked, her voice hoarse. Tom met her gaze, his scar itching under the sun. "Lost my family once. Can't leave you to die." Her lips tightened, but she didn't argue, her silence a wall he'd need to breach. As he worked, a shadow fell across them, 3 Apache warriors, their faces painted with earth tones, their spears glinting. The leader, a tall man with a hawk-like nose, stepped forward, his voice cold. "She's ours to leave. You interfere, Cowboy." Tom stood, his rifle ready. "She's hurt. I'm taking her in." The leader's eyes darkened. "I am Black Bear, her chief. She failed us, lost her legs in battle. She's dead to us." Sarah's face twisted with pain, not from her wounds, but from the rejection. "I fought for you," she said, her voice breaking. "You abandoned me?" Black Bear turned away, his men following. "You're nothing now." Tom's anger flared, but he held his tongue, lifting Sarah onto Dusty's back, securing her with his lasso. "We're leaving," he said. Sarah's eyes met his, a flicker of gratitude breaking through. "They think I'm weak," she said. "But I'll prove them wrong." Tom nodded, mounting behind her. "We'll prove it together." The journey began, the desert stretching vast, its silence a crucible for their nascent bond. The outpost watched in silence as they rode out, the weight of Black Bear's words lingering. Tom's mind raced his family's death, his years of wandering, now this woman's plight. Sarah's presence was a mirror to his guilt, her strength a challenge to his solitude. As they crested a dune, hoofbeats echoed scouts from Black Bear's band, their intent unclear. Tom spurred Dusty faster, his rifle within reach. Sarah's trust a fragile lifeline. They stopped at a dry wash, the sun dipping low, casting long shadows. Tom built a small fire, its warmth a fleeting comfort. Sarah leaned against a rock, her bandaged stumps aching, her pouch containing a small carved figure clutched tight. "Why help a cripple?" she asked, her voice low. Tom poked the fire, his face shadowed. "Ain't about your legs, it's about what's in you." Sarah's gaze softened, a hint of respect emerging. "My tribe valued strength. I lost that fight. They left me. Tom's heart ached. Her rejection echoed his own failures. Strength ain't just in fighting, he said. It's in surviving. Sarah nodded, her silence a bridge. The fire crackled, the desert vast, but the threat of Black Bear loomed larger. Tom's decision to save her had ignited a spark, a bond born in dust and defiance, with peril waiting beyond the horizon. The Arizona desert unfurled like a vast, sun-scorched tapestry as Tom Carver and Sarah ventured away from red sands, the red sands stretching endlessly beneath a sky that burned with the heat of late afternoon. Tom guided his chestnut mare, Dusty, with a steady hand, the animal's hooves kicking up dust that clung to his sun-faded duster, his worn boots scuffed from the trail. His face, rugged and lined with the scars of a wandering life, bore a faint scar across his left cheek, a reminder of a rustler's blade. His blue eyes clouded with the weight of his past. His family's homestead reduced to ashes, his failure to save them a wound that never healed. Sarah sat behind him, her legless form secured with his lasso to a makeshift sled crafted from branches and canvas, her tattered buckskin dress fluttering in the wind, the faded beads glinting faintly. Her small pouch, containing a carved figure, rested against her chest, her brown eyes sharp with suspicion, her hands gripping the sled's edge, despite the pain in her bandaged stumps. They headed toward a hidden waterhole near Coyote Ridge, a day's ride where Sarah hoped to find respite and perhaps a trace of her people's remnants. Tom carried a sack of jerky and a near-empty canteen, his rifle slung across his back, the weight a constant companion since rescuing her. The desert tested them with every mile, its silence broken only by the creak of the sled and the occasional rustle of a desert lizard. Sarah's presence stirred a compassion in Tom he'd buried since his loss, her plea for help echoing in his mind, her promise of reward a lure he viewed with caution. "We need to find shade soon," Tom said, his voice rough from the dry air. Sarah nodded, her breath shallow. "The waterhole's our hope," she replied, her voice steady despite her condition. "Follow the hawk's shadow." Her Apache wisdom, forged in a life of survival, guided them, but the threat of Black Bear's warriors loomed larger, their tracks potentially erased by the wind. The journey was arduous, the sled's rough construction jarring Sarah's wounds, her stumps aching with each bump. Tom's mind churned with guilt his family's death, his years of drifting, now this woman's plight. He offered her water, a gesture of goodwill, his hand trembling slightly. Sarah accepted, her eyes narrowing. "Why help a burden?" she asked, her tone edged with distrust. Tom met her gaze, his scar itching under the sun. "Lost my wife and son to fire. Can't leave you to die like I did them." Sarah's expression softened, but suspicion lingered. "Men like you take. Prove you're different." Tom nodded, respecting her wariness, the desert a witness to their fragile truce. Their progress halted at midday when they reached a trading post nestled in a dry-wash dust haven, a ramshackle cluster of tents and crates where outlaws and travelers bartered. Tom needed supplies, his stores depleted, but Sarah tensed, her hand on her pouch. "Danger here," she warned. "Men talk too much." Tom agreed, his rifle ready. Inside, the air was stifling, the stench of sweat and tobacco thick. A trader named Amos Tate, a lanky man with a crooked grin and shifty eyes, leaned against a crate, his gaze narrowing. "Tom Carver," he said. "Heard you picked up a Legless Apache. Black Bear's looking for her." Tom's jaw tightened, his past with Apache conflicts flashing. "Mind your business, Amos." Tate smirked, his eyes on Sarah. $100 says I tell him where you're headed." Sarah's hand moved to her knife, but Tom stepped forward, his rifle aimed. "Walk away, Amos. This ain't your fight." Tate paled, backing off, but his laughter lingered. "Black Bear'll track you down." Tom cursed under his breath. Amos's treachery would lead Black Bear straight to the waterhole. "We move now," he said. Sarah's respect grew, her trust a tentative thread. "You're not like them," she said. Tom shook his head, the weight of his past pressing down. "I've been." The ambush came at dusk. Hoofbeats thundered through the sand, and 4 of Black Bear's warriors, led by a scarred rider named Red Hawk, surrounded them near a rocky outcrop. "Hand her over, Cowboy!" Red Hawk barked, his spear raised. Tom fired, his shot grazing Red Hawk's arm, sending him staggering. Sarah, despite her condition, grabbed a rock, hurling it with surprising force, striking another warrior's shoulder. The third charged, but Tom's second shot dropped him, the outcrop falling silent, save for the wind's moan. The fourth fled, shouting threats. "Black Bear will have her head." They took cover behind the rocks, bandaging minor cuts, the heat seeping into their exhaustion. Sarah's eyes met Tom's, her suspicion easing. "You fight for me," she said. Tom wiped sweat from his brow, his scar itching. "Ain't right what they did. I've got my own regrets." Sarah nodded, her pain surfacing. "My tribe left me after a raid. Black Bear said I was weak. I lost my legs saving them." The confession hung heavy, a mirror to Tom's guilt, his failure to save his family. "You're not weak," he said. "You're alive." Their bond deepened as they rested, Tom sharing his canteen, Sarah offering a strip of jerky from her pouch. "Why carry that figure?" he asked, nodding to her pouch. Sarah's hand brushed the carving a small horse, its lines worn smooth. "My father made it. He died in the raid. It's all I have left." Tom's heart ached, his own losses echoing hers. "I lost my family to outlaws. Drifted since." Sarah's gaze softened. "We're both survivors then." The words bridged their distrust, a fragile trust taking root. The night stretched ahead, the desert vast, but the threat of Black Bear grew. Tom taught Sarah to use his lasso, her hands steady despite her stumps, their partnership a lifeline. "You're tougher than most with legs," he said, a rare smile breaking through. Sarah chuckled, a sound like dry leaves. "Legs don't make a warrior." Their laughter faded as hoofbeats returned, closer now Red Hawk and his men, relentless as the sun. Tom chose a defensible ridge, setting up with Sarah behind rocks. "We fight if we must," he said, his rifle ready. Sarah nodded, clutching her carving like a talisman. Red Hawk's warriors appeared, their spears glinting. "Last chance, Carver," Red Hawk shouted. Tom fired, his shot dropping a rider, but an arrow grazed his arm, drawing blood. Sarah threw another rock, distracting a warrior, her courage unshaken. The attackers retreated, their numbers thinned, but the danger persisted. They bandaged Tom's arm, Sarah's hands gentle despite her pain. "You're my friend," she said, her voice soft. Tom's eyes met hers, a warmth breaking through his grief. "And you're mine, Sarah." The desert tested them, its trials forging a bond. But Black Bear's wrath loomed larger, a storm they'd face together. The waterhole was near, but so was their reckoning. The Arizona desert sprawled like an unforgiving ocean of red sand, its surface shimmering under the relentless blaze of a midday sun that turned the air into a furnace of heat and haze. Tom Carver and Sarah pressed forward, the makeshift sled creaking behind Dusty, the chestnut mare's hooves kicking up dust that clung to Tom's sun-faded duster and Sarah's tattered buckskin dress. Tom's arm, grazed by an arrow from the outcrop ambush, throbbed beneath a ragged bandage, his worn boots sinking into the shifting sands, his rifle slung across his back. His face, rugged with a scar across his left cheek, bore a determined set, his blue eyes scanning the horizon for signs of Black Bear's warriors. Sarah, her legless form secured to the sled, gripped its edges with calloused hands, her small pouch with the carved horse figure pressed against her chest, her brown eyes sharp with survival, despite the pain in her bandaged stumps. The hidden waterhole near Coyote Ridge, their only hope, was a half-day's journey, but the desert had other trials in store. Their water was nearly gone, the canteen they'd salvaged from Dusthaven reduced to a few lukewarm drops. Their supplies dwindled to a strip of jerky and a handful of desert figs Sarah had spotted. The sun beat down, its heat a constant adversary, the silence broken only by the rasp of their breathing and the occasional cry of a hawk circling overhead. Tom's mind wrestled with his past, his family's homestead consumed by flames, his failure to save them a guilt that shadowed his every step. Sarah's presence, a mirror to his loss, stirred a compassion he'd buried, her resilience a challenge to his solitude. "We need shade," Tom said, his voice hoarse from the dry air. Sarah nodded, pointing to a distant cluster of mesquite. "There's a ravine ahead. It might hold water," she replied, her Apache wisdom guiding them through the wasteland. They reached the ravine as the sun peaked, its shade a fleeting mercy against the scorching heat. Tom checked the sled, its canvas fraying, while Sarah scanned for signs of life, her hands steady despite her condition. The ravine offered a shallow pool, its water murky but drinkable, a rare gift in the desert's grip. Tom filled the canteen, offering it to Sarah first. "Drink," he said. She accepted, her eyes softening. "You're kind, Cowboy," she murmured. Tom shrugged, his scar itching. "Just practical." The moment was brief, but it deepened their bond, a thread of trust weaving through their shared struggle. The desert's crucible struck at noon. A sandstorm brewed on the horizon, a roiling wall of red dust that swallowed the sky, its roar a challenge to their endurance. "Hold on," Tom shouted, pulling Sarah and the sled behind a boulder. The storm hit like a living entity, its force tearing at their clothes, dust clogging their throats. Tom shielded Sarah with his duster, his body pressed against hers, the tempest raging for what felt like hours, leaving them buried in drifts, their water spilled into the sand. As it passed, the desert revealed a new peril, a scorpion, its stinger raised near Sarah's hand. Tom reacted instantly, his boot crushing it, the crunch a stark sound in the silence. Sarah's eyes widened, but she didn't flinch. "You're quick," she said, her voice steady. Tom nodded, his respect for her growing. "You're tougher than most," he replied. That night, they camped in the ravine's lee, a small fire their only warmth, its glow casting shadows on the rocky walls. The storm had delayed them, the waterhole still a day away, and Tom's mind churned with guilt his family's death, his years of drifting, now this woman's fight. Sarah offered him a fig, her hands deft. "You fight for me," she said. "Why?" Tom poked the fire, his face shadowed. "I turned away from trouble once my family paid for it. Can't do that again." Sarah's gaze softened, her own pain surfacing. "My tribe left me after a raid. Black Bear said I was useless without legs. I saved them, and they cast me out." The confession hung heavy, a mirror to Tom's regrets. "Strength ain't in legs," he said. "It's in here." He tapped his chest, his voice firm. Sarah nodded, her silence a bridge. "My father carved this," she said, showing the horse figure. "He died in that raid. It's my strength now." Tom's heart ached, his losses echoing hers. "I lost my wife and son to outlaws, drifted since." Sarah's eyes met his, a warmth breaking through. "We're both broken then. Maybe we fix each other." Their talk was interrupted by a rustle. Apache figures emerged from the dusk, led by a wiry man with a hawk feather in his hair. "I am Talo, Sarah's cousin," he said, his voice cautious. "We saw the storm. Black Bear hunts you." He offered a water skin, his eyes on Sarah. "You're alive. We thought you gone." Sarah's face lit with relief. "Talo," Tom saved me. Talo nodded, offering Tom a beaded cord. "You're kin now, Cowboy." The reunion was brief, but heartfelt. Talo's warriors, 5 strong, joined them, their spears glinting. "Black Bear's tracker, Red Hawk, is near," Talo warned. "He won't stop." Tom's heart steadied, his bond with Sarah a shield. "We fight together," he said. Sarah's hand found his, her trust a beacon. "You're my friend," she said. The words warmed him, a redemption he hadn't sought. The peace shattered at dawn. Hoofbeats echoed Red Hawk and 6 warriors, their rifles and spears ready. Talo's men melted into the rocks, leaving Tom and Sarah exposed. "Run," Talo whispered, but Tom stood firm, his rifle raised. Red Hawk's voice cut through the heat. "Give her up, Carver, or die." Tom fired, his shot grazing a rider, but an arrow struck his side, a shallow wound that drew a grunt. Sarah threw a rock, distracting a warrior, her courage unshaken. Talo's men struck, their spears felling too, forcing Red Hawk to retreat. Tom bandaged his side, Sarah's hands gentle despite her pain. "You're my strength," she said. Tom smiled, a rare light in his eyes. "And you're mine, Sarah." The desert tested them, its trials forging a bond, but Black Bear's wrath loomed larger, a storm they'd faced together. The waterhole was near, but so was their reckoning. Sunken Mesa loomed like a fortress carved from the bones of the Arizona desert, its rugged plateau of red sandstone and scattered boulders rising stark against the twilight sky. The sun dipped low, casting a fiery glow across the mesa's edge, the air thick with the scent of sun-baked earth and the faint promise of a cooling night. Tom Carver, Sarah, and the Apache warriors led by Talo prepared for their stand, the tension palpable in the stillness. Tom's duster was torn, his worn boots caked with dust and blood from his grazed side, his rifle steady despite the ache in his muscles. His face, rugged with a scar across his left cheek, bore a grim resolve, his blue eyes shadowed by the weight of his past. Sarah, her legless form secured on a reinforced sled, sat with her small pouch clutched tightly, her buckskin dress frayed, the carved horse figure a silent strength against her chest. Her bandaged stumps throbbed, but her brown eyes burned with defiance, the beaded cord from Talo around Tom's wrist, a symbol of their fragile kinship. Black Bear, the Apache chief who had abandoned her, was coming, his vendetta to silence Sarah driving a force that threatened to shatter their alliance. The mesa offered defensible ground steep drops for ambushes, rocky outcrops for cover, and a narrow pass for traps. Tom fortified a vantage point with Talo's men, his hands rough from years of roping cattle, now adept at war. Sarah rigged tripwires with sinew, her fingers nimble despite her condition, her knife glinting in the fading light. Eli, a young warrior from Talos' band, assisted, his eyes sharp with the instinct of survival. "Black Bear wants me dead," Sarah said, her voice low and strained. "He fears my truth." Tom nodded, his guilt over past inaction fueling his determination. "We hold him here," he replied. Eli handed him a sharpened stake, a silent pledge of unity, the weapon's weight a comfort in his hands. Talo distributed spears and arrows, his face painted with earth tones, his warriors blending into the mesa's shadows. "Red Hawk leads them," he warned. "He's close." Tom's heart steadied, his bond with Sarah a shield against the encroaching dark. "We fight as one," he said. Sarah's eyes met his, a flicker of trust breaking through her pain. "You're more than a cowboy to me," she said, her words a balm to his wounded spirit. The sentiment lingered, a redemption he hadn't dared hope for, as the wind carried the distant sound of approaching hooves. As dusk deepened, the air grew taut with anticipation, the mesa's silence broken by the crunch of boots on sand. Black Bear rode in with a dozen warriors, Red Hawk at his side, the tracker's scar-faced grin a harbinger of violence. Black Bear, a towering figure in a feathered headdress, dismounted and called out, his voice a thunderclap against the cliffs. "Carver, hand over the cripple, or this mesa becomes your pyre." Tom stepped forward, his rifle raised, his voice firm despite the heat. "You'll have to take her over my dead body, Black Bear," he shouted, his breath visible in the cooling air. The battle erupted like a desert storm. Black Bear's warriors charged, their spears and rifles spitting fire through the dusk. Tom's first shot dropped a rider, the bullet finding its mark with a precision honed by years on the trail. Talos' warriors struck from the shadows, their spears felling two more, their movements silent and deadly. Sarah triggered a tripwire, a dynamite cache salvaged from an old prospector's stash exploding and sending a shower of sand and rock, scattering the attackers. But Black Bear's numbers were overwhelming, and Red Hawk's rifle was a relentless predator, his bullet grazing Tom's leg, drawing a sharp hiss of pain. Sarah pulled him behind a boulder, her side wound seeping anew. "Stay alive," she growled, loosing a knife that struck a warrior's arm, her aim unwavering despite her condition. The mesa became a battlefield, its echoes ringing with gunfire and the thud of falling bodies. Tom fired again, dropping another rider, the heat numbing his hands but not his resolve. Talos' warriors fought with primal fury, their spears piercing the fray, while Eli lobbed rocks, his small form a surprising force. But Black Bear's voice cut through the chaos. "Sarah, tell me your secrets, or Carver dies." He held a spear to Talos' throat, the warrior's eyes defiant. Sarah's heart sank, her pouch clutched tight. "No!" she cried, her voice raw with emotion. Tom's mind raced, he couldn't lose another family. He signaled Talos' men to hold, his gaze locking with Sarah's, a silent plea for a plan. Sarah dragged herself forward, her sled scraping the sand, her stance defiant despite her wounds. "Black Bear betrayed my tribe to settlers," she shouted, her voice carrying over the wind. "He sold them for power, left me to die when I fought back." The revelation hit Tom like a thunderclap. Black Bear's vendetta wasn't just pride, but a cover for his treachery, his desire to silence Sarah's knowledge of his deal. Black Bear laughed, his spear steady. "Then you both die with your lies." But Sarah moved, shoving Tom aside as Red Hawk fired, the bullet tearing through her shoulder. She fell, blood pooling in the dust, her carving slipping from her pouch. "Tom, no!" he roared, lunging to her side, his hands trembling as he pressed against the wound. Talos' warriors charged, their spears a blur, felling 3 men in a surge of vengeance. Eli struck with a rock, stunning a rider, while Tom tackled Red Hawk, their struggle a tangle of fists and sand. Sarah, her breath fading, gripped his arm. "Protect my people's truth," she whispered, her voice a thread. Tom's revolver barked, the shot piercing Red Hawk's chest, ending the tracker's threat. Black Bear roared, charging with his spear, but Talos' blade found his leg, bringing him down. The remaining warriors fled, their horses vanishing into the dusk. Tom knelt beside Sarah, his hands stained with her blood, his heart breaking as he tried to stem the flow. "Hold on," he pleaded, his voice cracking with emotion. Her eyes met his, a faint smile breaking through the pain. "You're my brother now," she rasped. "The truth is yours to guard." Her hand fell, her spirit slipping into the desert's embrace, her sacrifice a final act of trust. Talo bound Black Bear, his men finishing the fight, the mesa falling silent save for the wind's mournful wail. Black Bear was defeated, his warriors scattered, but Sarah's loss was a wound deeper than the heat. Tom cradled her, tears mixing with the dust on his face, the weight of her words sinking in. Eli approached, placing the carved horse on her chest. "She was our last hope," he said, his voice thick. "Now she's with them." The Apache carried her to a pyre, their chants rising, a tribute to her courage that echoed through the mesa. Tom stood, his guilt eased by her forgiveness, his promise to protect her people's truth, a new purpose. The mesa smoldered, the air heavy with loss and victory. Talo offered Tom a place with the tribe, but he shook his head. "I'll honor her at the waterhole," he said, his voice steady. The journey to Sunken Mesa had broken Black Bear's grip, but Sarah's sacrifice would resonate in the desert silence. Tom's salvation was hers, and her truth, her people's legacy, would live on. The dawn broke over Sunken Mesa, a fragile light spilling across the red sands, where the embers of Sarah's pyre glowed like the last whispers of a fading star. The air carried the lingering scent of smoke and the dry, earthy aroma of the desert, the vast Arizona wilderness, reclaiming the battlefield with a quiet, unyielding serenity. Tom Carver stood at the mesa's edge, his sun-faded duster torn and dusted with ash, his worn boots planted firmly in the sand, his rifle resting against a boulder. His face, rugged with a scar across his left cheek, bore the weight of grief, his blue eyes glistening with unshed tears, the guilt of his past softened by Sarah's final words. The beaded cord from Talo encircled his wrist, a symbol of the kinship that had brought him to this moment. Black Bear, bound and defeated, slumped against a rock, his chief's authority broken, his vendetta no match for the courage of a cowboy and a warrior. Eli, a young warrior from Talo's band, stood beside him, his feather-adorned hair catching the breeze, his small hands clutching a spear, his dark eyes reflecting a mix of sorrow and determination. The Apache warriors, led by Talo, moved with a solemn reverence, their painted faces mirroring the mesa's crimson hues as they gathered around Sarah's pyre. The flames had dwindled to a gentle glow, the sand around it darkened by melted wax and ash, a testament to her sacrifice. Talo knelt, offering a prayer in Apache, his voice a deep chant that reverberated through the cliffs, honoring a woman who had transcended her tribe's rejection. Tom watched, his hands trembling as he placed her carved horse, figure her father's legacy onto the pyre, a silent vow to carry her truth forward. Eli joined him, adding a handful of sage, its aroma mingling with the smoke. "She saved us," Eli said, his voice soft but resolute. "You kept her spirit alive." Tom nodded, the words a balm to his wounded soul, a redemption he hadn't dared to claim. The journey to a hidden Apache refuge began, the warriors carrying the pyre's remnants through the mesa's rocky pass, its ashes a sacred burden. The trail was treacherous, the sand shifting underfoot, the heat of the day giving way to a cooling breeze that carried the promise of renewal. Tom walked with them, his leg aching from the graze but his spirit lifted by their unity. The refuge emerged a sheltered canyon nestled between towering cliffs, its floor dotted with mesquite and a faint shimmer of a spring. The Apache survivors greeted them, their faces etched with grief for Sarah but warmth for her savior. Talo led Tom to the spring, its waters clear and life-giving, reflecting the cavern walls adorned with painted symbols and woven mats, a sanctuary Sarah had died to protect. "Her truth lives here," Talo said. "You are welcome." The tribe gathered around a fire that night, the canyon walls amplifying their voices as they shared tales of Sarah's bravery. Her gifts to Tom, her trust, her carved figure were now symbols of her legacy, their weight heavier than gold. They offered him a place among them, their eyes reflecting gratitude and hope. "You fought for her," Talo said, handing him a woven mat. "Stay and find peace." Tom hesitated, his mind drifting to his wandering days, a cowboy adrift since his family's death, his guilt a chain he'd dragged through the desert. Sarah's words, "You're my brother," echoed, her sacrifice a key to unlock that prison. "I'll stay," he said finally, "but I'll bring my skills to your refuge, with your help." The days that followed were a blend of mourning and rebuilding. The Apache taught Tom their ways, how to track game in the sand, how to weave mats from agave, how to honor the spring with rituals. Eli became his companion, the boy's knowledge of the desert complementing Tom's roping skills. They constructed a small shelter near the spring, its adobe walls rising under their hands, a fusion of Apache resilience and Tom's craftsmanship. The desert, once a place of solitude, became a bridge between worlds, its silence broken by the tribe's laughter. One evening as the sun set, painting the canyon in shades of orange and purple. Tom stood at the spring's edge, the beaded cord a constant reminder. Eli joined him, holding a new pouch woven by the tribe. "For you," the boy said. "Sarah would want it." Tom took it, his eyes misting as he traced its patterns. "She gave me more than I deserved," he said. Eli smiled, a rare light in his young face. "She gave us family." The sentiment lingered, a bond forged in the crucible of the desert. The tribe celebrated with a feast, their songs filling the canyon, Sarah's name woven into the melodies. Tom learned her story in full, how she'd lost her legs, saving her tribe from a settler ambush, how Black Bear had betrayed them to secure his power, how she'd fought to protect their refuge. His past, his failure to save his family, his years of aimless wandering faded against her forgiveness. He wasn't just a cowboy anymore, but a guardian, akin to those he'd once failed. Talo approached, offering a carved bone knife. "Lead with her strength," he said. Tom took it, his hand steady. "I will." Weeks later, the refuge thrived, its spring nourishing new growth, its people strengthened by Tom's aid. He rebuilt his life, the Apache's help a lifeline, their stories a balm to his loneliness. Sarah's pouch hung above the shelter door, a shrine to her sacrifice, its carved figure a silent witness. The desert stretched vast, its red sands a testament to their fight, but it was no longer a place of solitude. Tom's salvation was complete, not in wealth, but in the family he'd found: Eli, Talo, the tribe, all bound by Sarah's legacy. As the sun rose over Sunken Mesa, its golden light bathed the canyon, a promise of a new beginning. Tom stood at the shelter's threshold, the bone knife at his side, the beaded cord gleaming. He was no longer just a cowboy who'd shown mercy, but a brother to a warrior whose courage had saved him, whose truth had turned peril into a legacy of strength. The desert whispered her name, and Tom carried it forward, a new bond born from the ashes of sacrifice. The end and thank you.